Hi, welcome to Messier Mantra. We're back with a very special guest, good friend of mine, Judith Blacquier. Did I say that? I always ask the same thing.
Right,
Blacquier.
you said it right.
You were telling me.
Yeah, there's many ways to say it, so that was one of them.
It's French.
Yes.
I'm French as well, Messier.
Yes.
And when I was a kid, you know, even my own family said Messier.
Oh, right.
I started seeing this famous hockey player on the reruns on ESPN or whatever, Marc Messier. And when I saw that, it changed my whole definition of myself. Like, hey, Messier is a negative connotation. People pick on me for it. My family doesn't even care. But this hockey player who's got great success, he's winning championships left and right with the Edmonton Oilers, and Wayne Gretzky was his teammate, Grant Fuhr. This guy has the real deal, Messier. And I started doing that, and I think there was resistance. I think my own family, but I don't even care. Like, this is the way I pronounce the name.
Right.
And with that, more respect comes, more like, you know, you get the occasional idiot who does the Messier routine. Are you messier than I am? But these people are plebeians. You know, for the people that really understand the way the name is supposed to be said, that's the way to go. Now back to you. So we were talking off the air about some things that you can do to help people, or what you do and what people do to help themselves, how you're kind of an instrument, I guess. And you're talking about the sun and the melting ice. Why don't you share that analogy?
Okay, good one. That's one of the things that I do when I work with people is and anybody out there in the audience that wants to do this as I'm describing it, is I walk people through just how to relax.
Right.
And it's almost like, because whenever we're in a stressful situation, it's like we have, there's an issue that we're dealing with, and it's like a solid issue. Like, so imagine that you're an ice cube. Right. I'm going to walk you through this now. So imagine you're this form that's solid with this problem, this issue, whatever it is. That's the difficulty, illness, stress, whatever. So as an ice cube, you're sitting there with this difficulty. Now, what I would say to you is, imagine that you're that ice cube, but you're in a bowl on the windowsill in the sun.
Right.
So imagining yourself as an ice cube sitting in the sun and receiving the light and the warmth. And what happens to the ice cube is it starts to melt.
Right.
And it returns to liquid.
Okay.
A liquid state. Liquid light, in a sense, is what I describe it as. And so it's like whenever we are experiencing something in our life, it's a difficulty. It's because this our very essence, our liquid light that we are, has taken this shape.
Right.
Of like, there's the ice cube that we are, you know. And so what we do in healing work actually is we receive the light and the warmth of, you know, the powers that be.
Right.
I mean, it's like the sun lives in our heart. The sun, you know, there's so many symbolic ways to talk about it. But as we just, whatever's happening, if we just sit for a moment and imagine ourselves like an ice cube.
Right.
You know, receiving light, receiving warmth, knowing that, well, what happens to the ice cube when it's sitting in the sun? It begins to melt. It begins to let go of form. The
negative, let's say, I mean, in this metaphor, I think the frozen form of the ice cube, the water frozen into the ice cube is a negative thing in the sense that it's been, if we take negative energy, hardships, people putting you down, insults, losing a job, losing a family member, all that negative energy freezes the liquid that makes the ice cube. Now the nutrients of the sun, the vitamin D, the earthiness, positivity, that is represented by the sun, which kind of melts that ice cube and brings it back to the relaxing, the original form. Would you say that's
Well, we could
accurate?
also describe that sun as just love.
Okay.
Right? So, but you know, for the analogy of the ice cube, what melts the ice cube is the light and the warmth, the sun. But in a sense, what we're really talking about is love.
Okay.
You know, so we're sort of, you know, because that's the thing, is we're so hard on ourselves.
Right.
You know, we push ourselves like, figure this problem out now.
Right.
Do it better now. And when you imagine yourself, you know, like an ice cube, just receiving light, receiving warmth, receiving quote unquote love, because that's what it really is. It's like you return to your original form.
Right.
Which is like, that's what the ice cube was water, was liquid that was frozen. So whenever it's like you hit an obstacle.
Right.
Exactly. What is the obstacle? The obstacle is yourself. You're all of a sudden frozen in this form. And so whenever what often happens is then we try to proceed in our life as an ice cube.
Right.
When actually we need to let go of that form. And then I will switch to the butterfly metaphor.
Okay.
Because what happens when a caterpillar is transforming,
Right.
you know, if something's not working in your life, it's almost like, oh, you're like a caterpillar that is transforming. What happens with the caterpillar is its eyes don't work so well.
Right.
Its skin is sloughing off. It knows that it's about to transform. Gets into the cocoon, and what does it do? It lets go of form. It relaxes. It melts. How does it do that? Well, it's a natural occurrence. So in a way, the healing work that I offer, it's about returning to nature in
Right.
a way, you know, because we've had that trained out of us, but we really do know how to transform. Is that we, you know, and it's all about going inside. That's why a lot of spiritual teachings recommend meditation,
Right.
recommend, you know, closing your eyes, shutting down, shutting out the outside stimulus, and allowing yourself just to sort of go within and regroup. And if you're in the midst of a difficulty, you'll find that when you just do that, and allow yourself to just relax, then, you know, the caterpillar returns to liquid.
Right.
Which is its, you know, where its natural state, and then it becomes a butterfly. And it's sort of like that's what we do in healing work, or that's what we can do in a daily moment to moment,
Right.
on a moment to moment basis when we're in difficulty. Instead of like, the caterpillar doesn't keep trudging along. The caterpillar says, oh, I'm in the middle of a transformation.
Right.
I better like take a breather, right? And that's what we're all trying to do this. We do yoga, we do meditation, but then it's really like we don't have to go to the gym. We don't have to go to this person. You don't have to come to me to heal.
Right.
You need to like notice when you're in the middle of something to say, oh, okay, I need to like take a breather.
Right.
Maybe you take a walk on the beach, maybe you take a nap, maybe you go fishing, maybe you know, what's coming up.
And well, for me, it's interesting because what we're talking about here, I think some people love it. You know, some people say, wow, I do want to relieve myself of some of the antagonism I put on myself. Some people are going to watch this episode or read books on the same type of subject matter and say, I get it. I want to start doing that yoga or come to a holistic healer like Judith and kind of work with her or explore it myself or whatever. Then there's going to be those people who are so, call it angry and determined or questing something, whether it's a political agenda. They want to be a politician or they want to be a famous actor or they want to be the star quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams, or people that are so, and I'm not holding this against anybody because there's different types of people. But then you have those people who are so determined, just going after something and don't take a moment to breathe. And we read books on these people, Vince Lombardi or the football coach or whoever, you know, determined. I'm going to take on the world. You know, even Barack Obama, I'm going to be president and just go after it. You know, and so it's interesting to me just that there are different types of people, and perhaps we need all those people. We need, maybe most of us could benefit from that relaxation, but I wonder if some of these very determined, you know, above and beyond, could they benefit from this too?
Well, I think in a way what's coming to my mind is that they probably are doing it in some way.
Okay.
You know, they're probably allowing themselves to, you know, because say what happens when we, you know, when we shut off our full, you know, like what I was talking about, the talking head earlier, you know, we're almost like so taught to only be living in our, you know, from here up, that we lose the sense that we also have a heart. We also breathe. We have gut feelings that guide us. But when we're so cut off from that, and we're thinking only from our head, you know. But a lot of the people that are really successful, I think are really living in their, you know, fully embodied, you know, and then they have a way to, when life throws them a curveball, they have a way to catch that, you know, and throw it where they want to throw it, as opposed to somebody getting a curveball and just saying, okay, you know, out of my control.
Or I quit baseball, I want to start playing soccer or something.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
and
if they just switch the game too much, it makes any sense.
I mean, even in illness that can't, you know, a terminal illness, there's still a way to heal in the sense of coming back to your essence, coming back to your authentic self, and kind of, that's why as I love talking about synchronicity.
Right.
I mean, noticing the synchronicity, because in the middle of a very, very difficult place, there are some signs that, oh, wow, I'm not alone, or I am heard, or hey, the song just came on the radio that really inspires me, you know, in the midst of a really dark day. So I think in a sense, my job and what I would recommend to people, maybe that's the mantra, is to notice coincidences, notice synchronicities, and celebrate them.
Right.
You know, acknowledge them, because they're almost like stepping stones to guide us.
When you said that, just to jump in, an individual that came to my mind, someone who's in their neck up, in their brain, obviously, and in their spiritual body, Sting, the recording artist.
Yeah.
And he also had an album with the Police called Synchronicity. There might have been a single from the early 80s. But he just came to mind as you were talking, because that's a person who I've seen in concert twice. And not that he's the greatest of all time or anything, but just the fact that he does do the body work and the brain work and the music. And he might be a little political, I'm not sure. But he does, you know, Bono from U2 obviously does that. But there's some people in this celebrity world, just because they're people that a lot of viewers would know, have a lot of those bases covered. I'm interested that I go to a coffee house franchise, popular in New England, and when I go, and it's a great place, except for the fact that this particular coffee house has high-def TVs everywhere. So it's almost a mix of a coffee house and a sports bar in that regard. And I would be happy if they just played sports on the TVs, but a lot of time it's news, news, news. You know, the owner of the coffee house will kind of put the news on for his own political agenda, because he likes the certain TV stations with the news. And maybe some customers enjoy that. They want to read their paper and watch the news on mute or closed captioning, what have you. And then the rest of us, like myself, and especially the young employees there, don't like it, because it's negative energy. It's politics, it's hatred, it's riots. And for me, going to a coffee house to get a coffee or to relax with a donut or a pastry or meet some friends, it's not where I want to go to get my news. You know, and I find that interesting. And then, but the argument to be made against that is, if everyone was eating a donut and watching golf all day, then we'd all be victims to criminality by our politicians. So it does seem to be an interesting mix, because if everyone's doing yoga and meditation, then somebody's running the show that maybe we don't like.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of back to the beginning of the last interview about, you know, when we need when our car breaks, we need a mechanic, not necessarily a healer, right, or a spiritual healer. But that reminds me. Funny that you would mention U2, Sting, music. when I was going through, as I said, I was diagnosed with a life-threatening illness at age 40. And then 3 years later, I again had a life-threatening illness. And the guidance that I got was to surrender, as I said earlier, kind of surrender to life. Like, okay, this is what has been handed to me. This is what my life is. But then to also fight for my life. You know, it's like you're wearing a sweatshirt that says the Ultimate Warrior.
Sure.
I mean, there's a sense that we need to be warriors at the same time as we can, you know, we can be spiritual or peaceful. But when we go into too much passivity, then I think it's like, you know, we get run over. And when I was dealing with illness, it was recommended to me that I, you know, do all my treatments, fight for my life, but also watch funny movies. Do things that make me laugh and that lighten, you know, make me feel lighter and raise my vibration. And so when I was getting chemo, I would listen to U2 on my little headphones. And what I'm kind of getting at is that there's a balance between actually surrendering to what is, which is allowing us to breathe and relax, but also kind of fighting for our life, you know. And the idea of like U2 was kind of like feisty, you know, it was a little bit like warrior-like. Well, at the same time, it was relaxing for me. And I think we either get into like a lot of things I talk about in my work is about holding the paradox. I mean, or holding both, you know, it's like both and. It really stinks what we're going through, but there's a silver lining, you know, and, you know, you surrender to whatever is happening, but you still get up and fight for what you want, you know. And, but anyway, music is a great way to sort of inspire us and I think keep us going. And but the real point that I wanted to make about me listening to U2 as I was getting chemo was that I wasn't, you know, part of the thing when we get illnesses or when life hands us a curveball is we go into passivity, like I'm a victim, you know, I'm helpless. And it's really difficult when you go to doctors because you don't know as much as they do, and so it almost puts us, you know, backs us into a corner of I'm helpless, I'm powerless.
I'm the child, this guy with a smock, or lady with
victim,
a stethoscope. When
actually you have to fight for your life, but you do it from a surrendered perspective. And I think that's what martial arts, yoga are teaching us. It's like you're a warrior, but it's not a warrior for the bad guy. It's a warrior you're fighting for something good, but you need to do it from like a relaxed place.
And that's tough for some people. I mean, I think some people are motivated by anger or depression, or you know, they have to get up in the morning and lift weights for 3 hours just to get going. And I would say, just a quick little tangent on music. Talk about U2 and Bono and great albums. You know, I'm not the biggest fan, but you know, The Streets with No Name and Boy, whatever. But kids these days, they don't listen to albums. They don't listen to a full CD. They don't listen to song 1 through 12. They or God forbid a double, you know, album or a double CD. They want to listen to their singles or their Spotify's or whatever, Pandora. They want to listen to a bunch of singles that might have the same sound or the same pop, you know, type of mentality, or if they like hard rock or metal, they'll listen to the different artists, you know, spun around. I don't think, you know, kids these days listen to a full album. I don't think they understand that there's a certain breadth and a certain imagination. The producer and the artist came together and said, hey, track 1 sounds better than track 2. Let's take track 6, put it before track 9. If you take even an AC/DC Back in Black album, or many of the Led Zeppelin or Bruce Springsteen, there's a reason for the order. I guess what I'm getting at is like, that's the way I prefer it. Maybe when you were listening to the music in that situation, maybe there was a nice ebb and flow to the albums you were listening to in your headphones, assuming it was an album or a cassette recorder. But the younger generations don't appreciate that.
Well, that reminds me, though, Mike. One of the things that we're getting back to in healing work is we're getting back to a balance between our tame self and our natural self.
Right.
You know, we're part wild, not wild as in like drunk and drugged out, but we're part of the natural world.
Right.
And we're part tame. You know, we have brains, we can think, we can reason. But a lot of times that gets sort of, the natural part of us gets tamed out, and gets taught out, and we're just all tame.
Right.
And we're completely out of balance. That's like, you know, the talking head. It's like completely out of balance. The guidance that I get is that we are both natural and tame, wild and tame. And if we look to the natural world, you know, in the animal world, the parents teach their little, you know, the bear teaches the cub
Right.
very quickly how to trust its own intuition because it's going out into the world. The mother bear teaches the cub, you know, who's prey and who's the predator.
Right.
And then the cub is on its own as it grows. Now, we are with our parents for so long, and we teach our kids, instead of saying, you know, I'm teaching you, but it's for you to start trusting yourself and trust your own intuition. We kind of tend to teach our children, trust me, the parent.
Right.
Trust me, the parent. And then they're left with like, they're on their own and they don't have an internal compass.
What if their parents are screwed up?
Yeah, or
you know, there's always a tradition of saying, obey your parents or listen to what mom says or daddy knows best.
Yeah.
What if they don't? You know, and
what
then
if
I
they
think
don't?
there's a whole group of
Yeah.
kids through all generations who are maligned orphans in a sense, spiritual orphans. You know, if mom and dad don't know what the hell they're doing, or, you know, the spouses are cheating on each other or being abusive, then these kids grow up in that dysfunction, and then they have to learn somehow or another the opposite. Don't be like dad. Don't be like mom.
Yeah.
You know, your sister's nuts. You know, and I think that's tough for some kids because the message, for the most part, and I'm sure there's other messages, but for the most part, people get that Norman Rockwell, you know, type of image. And sometimes we see stuff a little more subversive, like the Simpsons, you know, or something like that. But for the most part, we're kind of whitewashed.
Yeah, yeah. One of my trainings was to honor people who are honorable.
Right.
You know, I mean, the old-fashioned way we taught our kids, honor every adult, you know, show respect. What if that adult is a pedophile?
Right.
You know, so we're teaching these kids to like kind of be victims.
Sure.
So really to teach our children to, you know, trust their intuition, trust their gut. How does it feel? You know, over time, trust your intuition. You grow up and you know how to proceed. But I think initially or fundamentally what's missing is that we're not teaching our children that they can trust themselves.
Right.
So that's kind of back to the album part, though, is that I would say to my son as he was growing, he's 19 now, but I would say, trust your intuition. You know, if you want to listen to one track, listen to one track. My intuition is, like you're saying, your intuition would be to listen to the whole album.
Right. Out of respect to the artist.
Out of respect for the artist.
Right.
But I would take a step back from that and say, out of respect for the artist, respect yourself first.
Sure.
And tune into your intuition. Trust yourself. And then proceed from there. You know, it's almost like no one is trustworthy if we can't first trust ourselves.
Right.
You know, because a lot of times people show us very quickly who they are.
Right.
You know, but if we're trusting them rather than trusting ourselves first, then we go hanging out with them. It's like if you trust yourself first, you say, oh, that guy just purposely ran over a cat.
Right.
If you trust yourself, then you say, okay, I'm not going to hang out with them.
Right.
You know, if you trust them and they say, oh, it's okay
Or their
that I
neighbors,
ran
he
over
didn't
a
mean
car.
to run over the cat.
Yeah,
And the cat
yeah.
jumped in the field.
Right, or whatever, you know.
We just have a few
it's
minutes
like
left.
Trust yourself. So that's
Right.
maybe my mantra
Good. Trust yourself. You
Yeah,
nailed
trust
it because I was going to
yourself.
ask you, we never get through the mantra anymore.
The mantra.
It goes too fast.
Yeah,
The show,
trust yourself.
you might as well just
Trust
call
your
it
gut.
Messier with Messier and guests, Messier and friends. But Messier, thank you. Trust yourself.
Yeah, trust yourself. As opposed to your head and your heart go together and your gut and all. But, when you trust yourself, you're trusting what you know. You're trusting your innate sense.
Right.
Of right and wrong. And so when you trust yourself and you grow up in an environment that's saying, don't trust me because I'm either screwed up or I might not be there when you need me. So we teach our children, trust yourself, trust yourself, trust yourself.
And I think we always run out of time because we talk a lot about a lot of cool stuff. It's a whole other tangent, but just to end on, when you talk about trust yourself, I think a lot of people of all generations at this point are mind melding with the social media. And as you know, I've been making an effort to get off of the social media as much. These, social media platforms, we all know what they are. I've been making a real effort in the last year and a half, and it's addictive. It's truly addictive. Social media platforms live for likes, thumbs up. I agree. Threads of conversations, and most of them turn to arguments eventually. And sometimes there's even a thing where I've had friends say, "Well, you don't like my stuff enough. You're not pushing the thumbs up button for me, and I'm mad at you." I've had grown men do that to me, more than one. So wait a minute. Or the other one is good. I've had female collaborators. "Did you block such and such?" No. "Well, they're not my friend anymore, and I blocked them. Why didn't you block them?" This is ridiculous. So I know that's a whole other topic, and we've got 58 seconds left. But just a little tinge, because maybe we'll talk about that the next time you're on. The dangers of social media versus the holistic approach, the healing approach, the living approach to life, rather than the type, I'm a zombie approach. Maybe we'll do that next time. Always with the lead in, right?
Well, the whole social media, I really agree, is difficult to navigate because, in person you can, tell where a person is coming from, but when you're, typing and all that, it's like you don't know. Oh, maybe maybe they just lost their job,
right?
And so we don't really get a sense of the whole picture, So anyway.
Well, this has been great, Judith.
Thank
we always have more to talk about than we have time.
I know. Huh? Thank you so much.
And the website, real quick?
Synchronicityandcompany.com.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
See you again.
Messier Mantra with our special host. I'm the special host. Judith Blacquier, our special guest. Thanks. I'll be here all week. Yay. Thanks a lot. Messier Mantra.
All right. Thanks.